Welcome back to the channel. My first Modern Warfare 3 video. I've been wanting to record this for a little while, but NVIDIA had yet to release the update that worked with Modern Warfare 3. So this is going to be not only the gameplay settings, but the NVIDIA settings that you should use as well for your Modern Warfare 3 game. Now the beta is out. Obviously, they're going to do some fine tuning once the game actually releases. That may change some of these settings, but for now, these are the best settings you can get for both in-game and NVIDIA. So let's go ahead and let's start the in-game settings here. So we're gonna go to settings up here. And by the way, this is gonna be, so the gameplay settings are gonna be helpful for those of you who are on console, right? And I'll also go over your controller settings. This is an all-encompassing video for you. All right, so we're gonna go to graphics here and the display tab here. I use full screen exclusive mainly because it helps with your frame rate and you don't get a lot of frame drops that way. You can use full screen borderless if you're streaming and you want to be able to go to OBS whenever you need to if you're using a single PC setup. Otherwise, I would use full screen exclusive. I'm using the GeForce GTX 1080, so it's a little bit older graphics card. So some of my features or some of the features you have might not be on here, but for the most part, most of the stuff is going to be on here. All right, screen refresh rate. You want to set this to whatever your monitor is. Mine's 240, so I set that there. Display resolution, we want to go ahead and set that. I honestly, if you have a better graphics card, you can play at 1440. So mine does support 1440, but my graphics card is a little bit older, so I won't get high frame rate. So I leave mine at 1080. Honestly, 1080, you're gonna get a higher frame rate. 1440, you're gonna get lower frame rate. So it depends if you want to, what you prefer more. If you like a better looking game, you can go ahead and put it to 1440 for with less frame rate. If you like a frame rate and a quicker reaction time, I would suggest leaving it at 1080. Again, this is all for preference. I play at 1080 because of my older graphics card and I prefer frame rate over the look of the game, right? Aspect ratio, you can leave it automatic. I turn VSync off because VSync limits the frame rate. Custom frame rate, I left a custom. You can put I set this again to your monitor. I put it up a little bit higher in case there are some portions where it can go higher, right? So I set mine to 250. Menu custom, I put to this one. You can put to 60 actually, and then out of focus can be 30. That's fine. And then if you haven't, before you get into a game, make sure you restart the shaders preloading. I have done that already. Gamma's fine. Brightness, go ahead and make sure that this is set to where you can barely see this. Around the 50 to 58 range is where I'm seeing working for most monitors. So I'm at 55. That should work for all of you as well. Focus mode is off and video low latency. So you want to use on if you have a a better CPU than you do a GPU. You want on plus boost if you have a better CPU than a GPU. I have a better CPU than I do a GPU, so I'm leaving it to on. And what that does essentially is it kind of throttles your CPU to then help out your GPU. On plus boost is GPU to help your CPU, right? So it's a little switch there. I turn high dynamic range off. For me, HDR seems to make it a lot more dark than it needs to be, and it kind of flushes out the whites a little bit, so I leave that off. So that was the display tab. Let's go to the quality tab here. Go ahead and apply the settings. Quality presets, you can put on recommended. I honestly will usually start with balanced and then make changes from there. Render resolution, you want to 100. Dynamic resolution, I leave this off. Essentially what this does is it kind of caters the resolution to what will work with your GPU. Sounds like it's a good idea, but it ends up throttling sometimes because it's unable to actually kind of cater to the GPU, right? So I leave this off. Upscaling, sharpening, this is probably the most important part. I put this on Fidelity FX Cast, and I put this strength to 100. Now I know in Modern Warfare 2 it was supposed to be around 75 to 85. In this game you want it to be at 100 because where we're going to change the how that is affected is going to be here for the anti-aliasing. I'm sorry, for the VRAM scale target. So anti-aliasing quality I set to low and SMAA to T2X. The VRAM scale target leave at 70. This ensures that with any growing, frame rate or bandwidth problems, it will still not go over 70% of your GPU. This makes sure you're not overworking your GPU and it doesn't get too hot. All the things that are important. Depth of field needs to be off. Detail quality level needs to be high. Particle resolution should be low. Bullet impacts and persistent effects should be off. Shader quality I set to high because that helps you seeing in darker areas. And then on-demand texture streaming should be off. Local texture streaming quality can be set to low. Shadow quality should be set to low. Screen space shadows and ambient occlusion should be set to off. And then screen space reflection should be set to off as well. Static reflection quality can be set to low. And then these are my settings for the environment. Tessellation should be off. If you have the option here to have nothing, that's what you should set it to. Mine doesn't have that option, so I set mine to max. Volumetric quality should be low. Deferred physics and weather grid volume should be set to off. So that's the quality tab. Now the view tab, most of these in the top here are going to be what works for you. I'm on PC using using keyboard and mouse. So I set mine to all the way up. This gives you the widest angle. Really need to show you guys the difference, but 80 is what console gets, and you're kind of going to get a little bit limited view, where 120 you're going to get a full range view of the game, right? So yeah, for PC you're going to set this to 120. If you are on controller, you want to set this to 105. At 120, it sometimes does not lock on as well at further distances. At 105, it tends to lock on better, and it's a little bit easier to actually see the enemies at 105 on controller. ADS field of view, I leave this to affected. It just means that when you aim down sight, it matches your field of view. Weapon field of view should be wide. Again, gives you a wider range of viewpoint. Vehicle field of view can be left at default. Always turn off blur. So world motion blur should be off. Weapon motion blur should be off. Anybody who I see playing with this, it just drives me nuts because it gives me a headache. Film grain should also always be 0. You want the camera movement to always be least. Spectator camera should be game perspective, and then inverted flashbang can be off. So those are the settings for the in-game settings. Let me do the NVidia filters, and then I will go to my controller settings in a second here. So again, if you want to get to your NVIDIA filters, if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, just Alt-Z should take you straight to this experience, the GeForce experience, and then the game filter. So the 3 ones in this order that you need to do are details, brightness, and contrast, and color. So details. Sharpen I leave at 65%. Clarity I have at 52%. HDR toning at around 24. Again, this HDR toning, even though we're not using HDR, it does change the darks and the whites. Putting it down tones down the whites a little bit whilst also boosting a little bit of the darks. It makes it a little bit more realistic color wise. And then bloom I leave at 0%. Brightness and contrast here, I put my exposure to 10%. Contrast at about 27%. Highlights at -10. Shadows at 51. And then the gamma you can just leave at 0%. Again, these were not just random numbers that I picked. These were ones that I kind of tweaked while in game and stuff to kind of see what looks best. You can play around with these as you see fit, but the contrast right around 27% or so is perfect. It's not too bright, not too dark. Highlights, again, has a lot to do kind of with the saturation of the characters and stuff in the background. Shadows, pretty straightforward. All right, and then color. It's the last one on the list. Tint color 0, tint intensity 0. The tint just kind of changes. If I turn this up, you can see like there's reds, blues, greens, magentas, right? We want that all the way down. Temperature can be left at 0. The vibrance is basically the saturation of colors, right? All the way down will be black and white. All the way up would be super saturated. We usually want this right around the 40 to 55 range. I leave mine around 48, 44, something like that. Again, tweak this to what you feel is good for you. Because again, your monitor makes a difference. Your lighting in your room makes a difference. That all makes a huge difference. So that is the NVIDIA filters. And just so you can see what that kind of looks like, very like cloudy, very mossy. The colors don't really pop. A lot of the background kind of looks a little bit, you can't really see very well. If I were to turn it back on, you can see everything kind of pops. Everything is very separated. The background separated from the foreground, etc. Right? So very, very much better. Again, there's that. That. All right. So that is the NVIDIA filters there. All right. So let's talk about the controller setting. So the cool thing about Modern Warfare 3 is you can actually edit your button layout and set specific buttons to each interaction, right? Which is very cool. This has not happened in any of the previous iterations of Call of Duty. This really makes it awesome for people who play on controllers to kind of extremely customize their experience, right? So I know this, everybody's different, right? We all have these, some people play claw, some people play regular, some people use bumper, some people don't. So to be able to kind of set these to whatever you want is really, really cool. I use stick and move. So I believe melee is A on that one, and jumping is the right stick. That's just, it makes it easier for me when I'm aiming to not have to switch. If I'm trying to jump around and bunny hop, which you can't necessarily do correctly in this game, but if I'm trying to bunny hop, it's very difficult to switch buttons, right? I am going to set that to my paddle because I have not done that yet, so that will change, but I use stick and move. Again, that's however you guys want to do it. I turn bumper ping off. I don't flip my LB and LT, RB and RT, or L2, L1 if you're on using a PlayStation controller. Again, use stick layout preset is default. I turn this off. It just makes it a little bit easier to be precise when aiming. Dead zone input. This is another thing that they added, which is actually really, really cool. So if I could show you guys real quick. Basically, if you turn this on, you turn test stick dead zone to on, you can see it'll show you where your dead zone is, right? So if it wouldn't go past there, that would be my dead zone. You'd have to set the min lower. You will find that a lot of controllers will go past where I have it now. Mine actually goes past 70 where it's set to, right? So if I were to set this up, it goes all the way to 100. But the reason you want to set it to 70 is it helps you move quicker when you're you know, moving around. And it also, believe it or not, allows you to go into a sprint quicker, because a lot of the sprinting, especially if you set the settings like I'm going to show you to auto sprint, you're quicker to get to the full, you know, the control to push forward fully, because you have less space to go to, so you will sprint faster. If you do notice on here, for me, was it my left? So my left one does have a little bit of a dead zone. You can see I'm not pushing the controller at all, and it is stuck down. What you want to do is find where that dead zone is for that stick. Then what you're going to want to do is move the minimum until it kind of matches where that's at. So I think for me, like 10 was the sweet spot. So now if I go back to test it, right, and I do this, now it's not really outside, so it won't really move, right? So that's perfect. You want to set these as minimum as you can possible that fit your dead zone. And then the right stick, I just leave all the way up. So you can be more precise at your aim, right? Left trigger, right trigger, I leave the default. Those should be good. For aiming, mine is at 6. I think this is the neutral consensus, is at 6. It allows for very quick movement, and the ADS aiming is not too drastic, right? I set mine to 0.9 here, just because it gives you a little bit extra control over your aim down sight. This, again, however you guys think will work is fine. You can put this up to where you think will work. I do not you know, change my sensitivity multipliers at all, so I don't change that. Vertical aim access, I don't change that at all. Tactical stance sensitivity multiplier, I haven't played with enough, but leaving it at 1 should be fine. Aim response curve type, I leave at dynamic. This aim response curve slope scale is new to Modern Warfare 3 and really hasn't had enough time for people to play around with it. I'm sure this will change. That will change in the future, and there will be a specific perfect setting for this, but right now 1 should be okay. And then again, my ADS sensitivity multiplier focus is at 0.9 as well, so those match. ADS sensitivity transition timing should be set to instant. And then I don't play around with the custom sensitivity presume. That is a preference. I do. There's a lot of others that may have specific for each of these that they do. But I have mine set to off. Target aim assist should be on. And then there's been different consensus between doing Black Ops and default. I have found default at close range is better, but Black Ops at long range is better. So if you're decent already at close range and you need help with the long range, I would go with Black Ops. If you're pretty good at aiming long range anyways, I would go with default. This helps for flashbangs. This helps for if you're a movement king to leave that at default. Everything else should be off, and I don't play around with these advanced settings. For the gameplay settings, here's where we talk about some of the stuff that's going to help you with your movement, right? I put on automatic tactical sprint. I think the consensus here is to not. I put it on because it's one less thing you have to worry about. Auto move forward, I have off. Tactical sprint behavior, I have single tap run, so you don't have to click, you know, the sprint, the L3 twice. You can just click it once and you're running. You're off to running. Grounded mantle, I leave off. automatic airborne mantle and automatic ground mantle I have off. That way you have control of when you mantle. Invert slide and dive behavior, we leave this to standard. I know in Modern Warfare 2019 we had this inverted because of quicker and better than sliding. In this game it's a little bit different. Sliding is better than diving, so we want to leave this to standard. Plunging auto underwater is left to trigger. Sprinting door bash you want on. Ledge climb behavior you want mantle only. Aim down sight behavior you want it to be hold, obviously. Change zoom, shared input, sprint tactical, sprint focus, hold. A lot of these defaults should be fine. I think the only one that you need to worry about is oh, I set this a tap to interact. This is mostly for Warzone, so you have to hold to reload and tap to interact. I think that is quicker in my opinion. Especially it forces me, who likes to reload for no reason, to not reload. Medium is fine here. All of these should be good. Good. Everything here is great. So that's it. The only other thing that I can think of here is we want to go to interface. If you don't have the NVIDIA technology, if you're playing on a console or what have you, go to interface here. I set all this stuff to default pretty much. If you go to this color customization here, this is where you're going to have kind of all of these color filter here. I'm using filter 2, which is kind of similar to like Black Ops Cold War, where we had I forgot what they were called, but we had the color filters. Instead of having them named, they just have them numbered here. And then color filter target, you want to set to both. This will be in game. We'll keep it a lot more kind of easier on the eyes. Enemies are easier to see in the dark, things like that. And then I set the world color intensity to about 85, between 75, 85 is pretty much your sweet spot there. And then HUD bounds. This is important. You want to move this to the center as much as possible. So you can, if you're on PC, it's really easy. You can just click and drag all the way over until you get to the furthest. The reason you want to do this is you don't have to move your eyes as far to get to the HUD, right? All of this stuff on the HUD is going to be right in this little area. You don't have to move your eyes as much to see the HUD. It's really, really cool there. Minimap rotation on's fine. Horizontal compass, I prefer to have it off, but that's a preference you guys want to have. This is really cool in this version. You want the static crosshair, and then you want the center dot on, and you want the center dot scale to be larger, right? So it's going to be a larger dot in the center of your screen. Makes it easier to kind of hip fire. Hit marker visuals on, and all this can stay the same. Telemetry is for PC only, but you can set custom here, and if you want to have an FPS counter, you can do that. These don't really matter. These are whatever you want to do for that. I like to have those up there just so I can do a quick glance up there and see. And then everything else is pretty much what you want to do. Oh, parallax effects should be off. This adds a 3D effect to the menus. You're wasting frames there doing that. You don't need that. It's a cool effect, but it's not necessary for performance. All right, so that's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get into a game here. And then I'm going to show you what all of these changes look like with and without them. And, well, at least the NVIDIA, so you can see in-game what it looks like. And then we will conclude the video. All right, we're getting into a game here, playing Rust. All right, so let's sit here real quick, show you the difference here real quick. So if I go here and I turn this off, it's very, very, very muddled. It looks foggy. The color doesn't pop. If I turn it back on, there's the color pop right there, right? And I'll show you real quick what the FOV looks like. If I go here to view and I turn this down to 80, so this is 80. A lot less screen that you're seeing here, right? If I go back, go to 120, way more screen that you're seeing, right? So this kind of shows you what the FOV can do for you. You have a lot more screen that you can see. You can see more to your right and left. So that's my preference. Again, if you're on controller, you might want to do 105 because it's a little bit easier for the aim assist to actually work. So those are the settings you guys should be using for the beta. I will post an update if things change with, the actual release of the game. But I do appreciate you guys hanging out. Please make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and please do remember that good vibes are contagious.